Hey, IDS 301. Welcome to video module 4, video 2. It is Thursday. No, it's not. It's Wednesday, February 3rd, about 5 to 1 in the afternoon. And hopefully this will be shorter than the 302 video, which went over 30 minutes, but we had a lot to talk about. I don't think this one will be as long. Okay, so let's, I've got a few hodgepodge notes here that I'm going to try to make sense of. That sounded good when I wrote them down. I'm not going to do that one because you didn't ask me about it. Hey, just by the way, if you're going to take 302 with me in session B or down the road, great, I appreciate it. Hopefully I won't do anything or haven't done anything, won't do anything, make you change your mind. I think there's about 25 out of that's about half of what I have here. Are going to follow into 302, and one of the most practical things I can say is you already have this. You won't need to buy another one. Number one, number two, you're reading it now. You're going to reread it to get some more stuff out of it. We'll talk about that, but you're also going to be well prepared to take on the research, and you're going to understand how I operate in many ways because each of us as instructors have our own proclivities and pet peeves and obsessions, right? So thank you for that, and I look forward to, right now I'm doing a 301 and 302, but in session B it's only 302, which, yeah, there's something more difficult about having 75 students doing 302, but there's something nice about only having one course to teach. So I think that's, it balances out pretty well. Speaking of the text, I think the value of it, I reread it all the time, and I just wanted to re-emphasize it's very valuable. From the introduction on, Tanner gets into IDS equals integration, frankly. I mean, he talks about synthesis, things like that, but as we know, I'm trying to get you to recognize IDS as integration, integration as a process, IDS is an academic field, but synthesis is in there. There's other words that you can go after that, but so he also talks about programs that are, he talks about them being more multidisciplinary than interdisciplinary, where again, it's like you would have your concentrations, but if you didn't have 301, 302 to do this, you're just multidisciplinary, okay? And I think there's value in understanding what that means, okay? So he talks about making meaningful connections between intentional areas of study. It's kind of a mouthful, but I think what that means is talking about integration and interdisciplinary studies in terms of the concentrations in that. And if a student had geology and dance, there's not a lot of intentional, meaningful connections there. They're two good, valid, and someone with a creative mind and such could probably put them together. But whereas my concentration is African American studies and human rights, they do have a natural connection there in terms of going through history and looking at what's going on and certain issues to make it's a meaningful connection and intentional areas of study. So that's something to consider too as you structure this idea of interdisciplinary studies in your own mind, right? We talked about these committees and how interdisciplinary studies can manifest through a more than two or more people, and two or more people who each one of those people might be accredited expert in a particular field. They come together to do work that is interdisciplinary, integrative. They're tasked with. They're not just going straight up through a report on individuals. They are doing this. So whereas we as individual interdisciplinarians who are trying to train ourselves in more than one discipline and then also to train ourselves in process of integration, we are setting ourselves up to be prepared and positioned to contribute in an interdisciplinary fashion, which you could say transcends or either goes something different than normal. Because as he talks about, I think employers today are looking for employees, and you're expected to know more about more. So we said, yeah, know more about more. And I would add, especially than I was, back in the 70s or 80s. Before this and this, we had this. We were expected to do a lot of more memorization, have the knowledge inside of us to apply it. You accumulated it, you built on it. But let's face it, there's a finite level of that. But today, you're expected to know more about more because you can access more, right? Unlimited, frankly. I don't like using absolutes or infinitives or definitives and things like that, but come on, what can't you find on here through the internet? I talk to my contemporaries in my age group, and some of them are technologically illiterate, and that's fine for them. They've gone through life this way, and they made it just fine. It's more rare. It's going to be more rare to see that going forward, but they'll be there. But we've always had conversations, whether it was in the '90s or '80s or even now. Yeah, remember that? Remember that song? Remember that movie? Remember that thing? And then guys, people would sit around, and we'd kind of have this exploratory debate about what we did and heard. Now, forget it. Game over. Do you hear that song on the radio? Oh, that's got to be the Doors. It's got to be the Stones. Got to be. You don't have to worry about that. You just hit. You don't. I don't even know if you have to hit Shazam anymore. I think Apple just. I could just ask Siri to listen to it, right? I have my Google up there. Play me some music at night too. So we have access to an infinite amount of knowledge that's already there. Our job then is to know how to access it and then know what to do with it. And in between those, to discern the value of it, right, as knowledge, to be better consumers of knowledge. And one of the strong objectives I have in 301 and 302 so my students come out being better consumers of knowledge. So whatever field they go into or don't go into or what have you, just day to day, your mind is structured better in terms of seeing information, consuming the knowledge, but understanding what is the veracity of it, what the importance of it. So, and you'll learn more about this in research in the next class, but I want to give you an example here of, for example, there's an article from Madison.com. I'll include this in the whatchamajigger, uh, the email announcement. But for example, this article right here, you know, prehistoric teeth seen as proof of early human sex with Neanderthals. Now, I had my DNA done. Many of us have done it. I started doing mine way back, like 13 years ago, before it was the vogue thing to do, and it was extremely enjoyable. I did it through Nat Geo. But yeah, I have my 2% of Neanderthal in me. But they talk about this new analysis of 11 teeth that were found in a cave in Jersey, not New Jersey either. I think it's an island somewhere. And they talk about how they're reanalyzing it and be able to understand better with the science that's now available to understand if the overlap there of Neanderthal and Homo sapien, what is it? Early modern humans. Help me out here. Yeah, Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. Okay, so they're looking at that to understand, and it's very integrative. Okay, but here's one even bigger that one of the students, I think she's in 302. I'm not sure if she's in 301, but 302. I don't know, where are you? But she sent me a link from National Geographic, and I'm going to include this link. Now I had to sign up to get email announcements. That's no big deal. But it's talking about, has science solved one of history's greatest adventure mysteries? And it's very interesting about the bizarre deaths of hikers in Russia's Dyatlov Pass have inspired countless conspiracy theories, but the answer may lie in an elegant computer model based on surprising sources. Well, this is what's so interesting about this integratively thinking. Not only are they using a lot of new data and new models with the existing data that they have from there, they've also went and worked with some of the animators who worked on Frozen to develop these different models to help solve this. problem about what happened up there in Russia that some people are saying are evidence of the Yeti or aliens, something like that. Very interesting article. I'll include that. And finally, on Twitter, I follow a epidemiologist. His name is uh, Eric Fiegel Ding, and he is an epidemiologist, senior fellow, former 16 years at Harvard, health justice advocate. Now, there's a integrative occupation, health justice advocate. Okay, and I follow him a lot because he talks a lot about the science. He goes through studies, whether it's AstraZeneca, the Pfizer, Moderna. He's looked at studies. He had analyzed them and comments on them in, what do we call it? In common language, in that we can understand. And I learn a lot about the science behind these vaccines and things like that. Yes, it's up to me to judge how much of that I believe or don't believe, but he has the credentials, okay? He has the credentials to back him up, all right? So, layman's terms, that's what I was looking for, layman's terms. So I'll include a little bit about these three in the announcement. Let's go with Easter egg number 1. Where is it? Oh, it's consumer of knowledge, right? Consumer of knowledge, Easter egg number 1. All right, so let's go talk about the South Dakota's Norway experiment. That is something that's in your discussion board that you're going to look at in terms of reading this article from Mother Jones magazine online, and then let me pull that up again. By the way, a lot of you are doing the network, gorgeous networks or whatever. I hope you're enjoying that. I think it's pretty cool, isn't it? Isn't it? Let's move this back into play here. So we're on module 4 already, huh? North Dakota's Norway experiment. All right. So what you're doing here for this is you're looking at the 5 steps, Tanner's 5 steps, which are found on the bottom of page 34. I have them here. If you're with me in 302, you're going to be using this as a guide. So familiarize yourself a little bit with these. Now, as a discussion post, your responses to number 3, 4, and 5 are going to not be as comprehensive, okay? Through an idea, so I'll explain that. But I want to see what you can come up with. An exercise such as this will give you experience in seeing an issue, problem, or artifact through the lens of interdisciplinary and a process, okay? So your post is up to 40 points. No response is required. In terms of minimum word count, I didn't put one in here, but I did mention that I'm looking for evidence of rigorous thought. That's the one we're waiting for. Oh my God. Rigorous thoughts applied to the prompts. Brevity is not a good idea here. Quality in the responses will be rewarded. And by quality, what do I mean by it? Rigorous quality? Demonstrating that the readings were read, okay? Concept and terms from the text in the class are being utilized here. Falling back on whatever you think that before you got into class and just bringing that to the table is not going to work, okay? You're here to learn, to advance your learning. Therefore, applying the terms and concepts that you're seeing in chapters 3, 4, and 5 is going to work a lot better. So, North Dakota's Norway experiment is real integrative. You'll be able to sense that, see that, okay? So you want to look, okay, on this one. Okay. All right, I want you to use 3 different disciplines. Okay, examine the North Dakota experience. So, define a complex issue or problem. So what are they taught? What's the complex issue or problem here in the North Dakota's Norway experiment, okay? Be specific, provide background information concerning the issue problem. I just want you to talk about what you read and how you're going to apply that. Why does that make it a complex issue or problem? What are you seeing there, okay? Number 2, Justify an interdisciplinary approach. What meaningful questions can you ask about the issue problem? How are those questions interdisciplinary? What makes them meaningful? Okay, to justify an interdisciplinary approach, I'd like you to identify 3 different disciplines here that you could use and why you should do this, why it's better to do it through an interdisciplinary lens as opposed to just one discipline, okay? What meaningful questions can you ask about the issue problem? So you don't have to answer them, more or less rhetorical. Well, what can you ask about this? About this. Does more leniency or more comfort, more creature comforts in prison? Does it make it less of a punishment, or is punishment what we're after? Ask these questions. Look at this, okay? How are those questions interdisciplinary? Well, because you might want to have to look at it through psychology or through economics, political science. There might be a lot of different ways to go here. What makes them meaningful in our society? I don't want to give away tips here. I want you to think about what makes these questions, this topic, meaningful. Okay. Number 3, locate multiple sources of relevant disciplinary knowledge, information, and perspectives that will address the issue or problem. I would like you to find two. Find 2 sources, okay, that you can relate to this. Look through the ASU library online, go to journals, academic peer-reviewed journals. Stay away from newspapers, stay away from Forbes, Investopedia, Wikipedia, dictionary, encyclopedia. Stay away from cron.com, newspapers. Stay away from .coms. What does .com mean? Commercial. Commercial means revenue. What does revenue mean? Bias. If you go to an academic journal through the ASU library, you put in a search theme there, right? Look for the filters, check on full text online, and check peer reviewed, and you're going to find a number of sources. Look for a couple sources. In 302, it's going to be more extensive, but take a look, about some relevant disciplinary knowledge. Okay, it's fun to do that. Now, number 4 is critically analyze common disciplinary insights, conflicts, and patterns of connection. Again, I'm not going to ask you to overdo where you're at. Whatever you're reading about certain things and to understand this, but I want you just to free think here, okay? Common disciplinary insights. Okay, what would that mean? What would that look like? Well, political science and economics. They may have a common disciplinary insight based on the fact that economics plays a big factor in prison development, the cost, how you're going to spend the money. That's economics. Political science is going to talk about it because they're in charge of budgets. They talk about budgets. They talk about what's the political winds favoring. Are they favoring 10 city jails in Phoenix? Are they favoring, political science? So those are common disciplinary insight. And then there's conflicts, On one side, the humanitarian process is to have people pay their debt to society, but the goal should be should the goal be to get them out of there better people, better suited to living in society than just straight punishment? Patterns of connection. What are we looking at here? I mean, how are these all connected? These disciplines and this topic, and what does this mean? Think big here, okay? Number 5, create and discuss an integrated framework that provides for a holistic understanding of the problem issue. So number 5 is going to be, you're going to look at it and say, well, based on these, this or based on that, and considering this, considering that, a better understanding of this issue could be achieved by, blankety blank. A better understanding might lead to blank blank. Notice I said might, I didn't say will. I said might lead to, tend to show, this or that, okay? So this is like a mini exercise in Tanner's 5 steps. It's a mini exercise in integrative research and conceptualizing the integration process, okay? That's important. Where are we at? 1938, the year I was born. No, not really. Okay, so let's do Easter egg number 2. and that is the best research does not overpromise. The best research does not overpromise. Okay, so I noticed on that Eric Finkelding's whatever his name is, Twitter, that he'll talk about some of the results from the trials and the efficacy and all the data. He'll say this might show, this might mean. Okay, it doesn't say this means that this and this. They don't overpromise. Good research is not pie in the sky promises. Okay, it's humble. It doesn't overpromise. Okay, so now then we have a quiz. The quiz is on chapter 6, 7, and 8. Chapter 6 reading is 11 pages, 7 is 9 pages, 8 is 5 pages. So you have an approximation there of 25 pages. Let me just double check. Crap, Liverpool just started. Let me just check. Module 4, learning materials, 6, 7, and 8. Good. Those will help you also with the whatchamacallit, the discussion board I was just talking about. The quiz for module 4, quiz 3 has it's about 6, 7, and 8, and 10 multiple choice, 20 true and false. Piece of cake, right? So any questions, comments, or concerns, let me know. You guys are really doing well in this class, I think. Remember, page 34, Tanner's 5 steps is there, but you'll see it. So anything else going on? Not for me either. Easter egg number 3. Oh, Easter egg number 3 is page 34 for Tanner's 5 steps. Got that? Forks up. Peace.